The second scripture reading on this morning continues with this familiar story, picking up in the 21st chapter of the book of Genesis. The Lord dealt with Sarah as God had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, whom Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, "God has brought laughter from me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." And she said, "Who would ever have said to Abraham that Sarah will nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age." May God's blessing continue to flow through the experiences of Scripture. May it guide the meditations of our hearts and the words of my lips. I've said it before, and I will probably continue to say it through the rest of my life. There are times when God finds me funny. 3 daughters. God finds me funny. A soon-to-be 15-year-old, a soon-to-be 11-year-old, and a toddler. God finds me funny. When I entered Search and Call the very first time, we wanted to move back out east to be close to family, but I had never lived in a rural community, and I kind of wasn't certain I would want to do something like that. So I said, "God, I'll go where you send me, as long as it's not." And God finds me funny. And there's lots of stories like that in our lives. They're all over the place. So many times when something has happened, and we laugh about it. And we should laugh. Laughter is part of life. Laughter is one of those gifts that we have been given. Even if it is the laughter that doesn't come from something being funny, ha-ha. Right? When I was young, America's Funniest Home Videos first rolled out. And I remember being allowed to watch it a handful of times before my parents decided it really wasn't the best thing for their children to be watching, because it wasn't funny, ha-ha, it was funny, uh-oh, where people were falling and getting hurt. And my mom didn't think it was good to laugh at people when they got hurt. I'll laugh at myself when I fall down, and when I'm laying on the floor, a victim of gravity yet again. But laughing at others when they're hurt, that's not really funny. But we do, once we find out you're okay, laugh. So just know that. Once I found out you're okay, I will laugh. Funny, uh-oh. And then there are those moments of laughter when it's funny, oh, sugar honey iced tea. Right? It's this funny thing that is absolutely incredible, amazing, life-changing and upending kind of funny. The promises that are made that we're hearing about in this section of the Genesis text have that funny ha-ha, that funny uh-oh, and that funny oh snap note to them. We didn't hear the whole story, but if we were to look at it, we would find these promises taking place over 25 plus years. 25 years of waiting for a promise. Now, we might start off laughing because it's just too good to be true. That's just silly. That's not going to happen. And then we might start laughing because we're starting to get worried about it not happening. And then at some point when it does happen, we might laugh and cry at the same time. Abram and Sarah were promised a child fairly early on, all things being equal. And it was funny, ha-ha. It's amazing. Child, funny, ha-ha. But then life goes on and time starts to go by and Abram gets nervous. He gets anxious, as we all do. And then it's not funny, ha-ha anymore. It's kind of a funny, uh-oh. It's funny to think about how God promised this thing was going to take place, but it's not happening. It's not happening, God. And then we get to this moment when the three strangers show up. Now, hospitality in the ancient world was a serious thing. Hospitality is a life or death sort of thing. And so when these three strangers show up in the heat of the day, Abram takes it very seriously. Did he know he was entertaining God? No, I don't think so. But in the ancient world, you didn't mess around with this. And so he ran out to take care of these folks. Nothing funny about taking care of someone. But sometimes a good laugh can come from it. And that's what happens, because one of the strangers says, in due course, there's going to be a kid. Now, we don't know if Abram laughed or not. He might have smiled. He might have said, sure, okay. But Sarah, back in the tent, she finds it funny. It's funny, ha-ha. Because Sarah and Abraham are not in the place in life to be having kids. Biologically or anything else. Just not in the place to have kids. So she's like, oh, that's funny. That's funny, haha. And then one of the three strangers says, why are you laughing? Now we get a sense that the distance from the tree to the tent is no small matter, and yet one of the strangers knew that she had laughed, that she found this promise funny. She's like, uh-oh, funny, uh-oh. That nervous laughter when we get in trouble. Sometimes we get that way. We get in trouble and we just laugh because we don't know what else to do. And then more time passes. It had already been a very long time, but more time passes and eventually the promise is fulfilled. Abraham and Sarah have a child. Scripture says that Abraham was 100 years old. Sarah wasn't much far behind. Funny, uh-oh, says the one who's got a little kid running around. Funny, uh-oh. Because this is a life-upending event. Now, we think of the joy that comes with this life-upending event. We think of the Isaac story and all that comes with it. Yes, there's the unfortunate bit about the potential sacrifice. That's a troubling text to deal with. But much of this story revolves around this idea of laughter. Things that are, oh, that's funny. That's funny you said that. And, that's funny. It looks painful, but it's funny. And then, oh gosh, it actually happened. That's funny, but better you than me. All of these laughing moments wandering through Scripture. The ways that God can stir within our lives to elicit a sense of joy, even in the irony of life. Even when we attempt to cordon things off and pretend that promises haven't been made, or the fact that they haven't happened in our timeline, we try to cordon them off, or we try to control things, but there's still laughter in all of it. In this story, this section of the story, there's one last note, though, that perhaps isn't funny. There's Hagar. We didn't read about her. We didn't hear about her. But in that period of waiting for the promise to take place, the one that elicits laughter early on and again later in life, Abraham and Sarah decide to take matters into their own hands in several places. Because sometimes we laugh when we are anxious. Ha ha. Uh-oh. Oh dear. Hagar had a son by Abraham. And when Isaac is born, the source of laughter that Sarah proclaims, Hagar and the son are dismissed into the wilderness. There's nothing funny about that. There is no humor in that at all. And so we are reminded again that even in the midst of the joy that God brings, the things that we find funny are sometimes the things that are the most distasteful. I think of funniest home videos where someone takes a nosedive. As a kid, I used to laugh. And now, it's not funny anymore. So what is God doing in all of this? This God who elicits laughter and stirs us to moments of hope and joy, and yet the same God who providing a gift to Abraham and Sarah opened the door to the dismissal of Hagar and Ishmael. What is God doing? Well, God is proving over and over again that when we make decisions, funny or not, God is going to act in them. When God first promised the child, and Abram and Sarai did everything they could to force God's hand, God held back until the time was right. And when Abraham and Sarah dismissed this no longer desired child, God swooped in to tend to them, Hagar and Ishmael as well. And I like to think that later in life, when Ishmael told the story, he laughed. He laughed in the same way that Abraham and Sarah and Isaac would laugh. I'd like to think that he, too, found God funny. Because God takes great joy in us, even when we make poor decisions in life. Funny ha-ha. Funny uh-oh. Funny oh boy. Thanks be to God. And amen.